The world of theater is full of stars. But just like in the night sky, sometimes we don't see them all. Some are in the wings, some are maybe up over us in the catwalk. Hopefully they're not under the stage, but you never know. In this series, we are going to meet those hidden stars of the theater, hear their stories, and be inspired by them. So join me on this journey here in my state-of-the-art production studio in my backyard as we meet the hidden stars of theater. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Hidden Stars of Theater. It is your host, as always, Jamie Davis. I hope I'm always your host. That'd be a sad thought to not be, because you know what? I love hanging out here with you in my camper, in my backyard here in southeastern Oklahoma. If you're ever in the area of Ada, Oklahoma, please find me. Honestly, I don't know why you would be, but if you ever are, do. It's the cultural center of the universe or something. I don't know. But today, it's extra cool because today we have a star hanging out with us here in the camper. This is Miss Elizabeth Weidner, and Elisabeth is in Santa Maria, California, which is probably not as pretty as Ada, Oklahoma in opposite day, right? I think that was the thing on SpongeBob once. But Elisabeth, it is so great to have you with us today.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's our honor to get to have you here in the camper, and we look forward just to learning from you as we hear your story, as we like to do, and just learn a little bit more about some things that maybe we've talked about in the past. You are, and I'm going to ask you to clarify this for me, because I use different terms, and if I'm saying one of them incorrectly, nobody has ever corrected me, probably because all of my guests are such nice people, they would never do that. But would you say audio technician, audio engineer? I've heard sound guy is not necessarily a great thing, right? But yeah. What would the preferred moniker be for someone in your position?
So my job title is sound designer. I am a sound designer. I started out as a sound engineer. And I too have heard people go back and forth on audio engineer or sound engineer. So I think, tomato is acceptable on that front. And yeah, we want to try to not say sound guy anymore, because hopefully it's a lot less guys and more sort of equal playing ground from now on.
Absolutely. And you like that softball I pitched there for you to be able to hit it out of the park. Nice. And we're going to talk about that, because that absolutely is something that you are passionate about and part of what you're going to share with us. I know that we've had a guest previously, Heather Augustine, who is a part of an organization called Sound Girls, as are you. Yeah. And so we're going to hear more about that today, and just about the exciting journey that you've had getting you to where you are today as a sound designer. And what a cool thing to design sound. It just sounds cool.
It is cool.
Yeah, because you're cool, because you're a star, right? Absolutely. So as always, we start from the beginning. And Elisabeth, our listeners all know what that means, but let me just kind of cue you in. What we want to know is, because I believe that we learn from your story. We learn a little bit about every aspect of what helped mold you and shape you and design you to be a sound designer, right? And right. So I'd love to just have you begin at the very beginning in life, when things began to steer you the direction of your vocation, and tell us about the people and the events and all the fun stories and things that happened to really be a part of that molding process. So, I'm just going to turn the stage over to you and have you go with it. And I just get to sit back and listen and enjoy.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So I guess my story begins inside my family. I was born into a theater family. My father went to school for theater. His main focus was acting and directing, but he's always been a sort of jack of all trades kind of guy. When I was a kid and coming up, he was doing community theater. But when he was in college, and graduating from college, he definitely tried the whole New York scene with a bunch of actor buddies, 20 actors crammed into one apartment, you know, audition after audition every day in New York, just trying to make the whole thing work. He ended up coming back to his home in Alabama. My mother, father, and myself were all born in Alabama, and my brother was born in Colorado. But he came back home to get some more education, went back to school, met my mother, quickly had a baby, me, and decided to join the Air Force to support this new family that sort of cropped up. And then thereafter sort of kept his theater habit, I guess, alive through community theater. So that's sort of
sounds like a man after my own heart, for sure.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute, am I your dad? No, I was never in the Air Force, so let's not get confused there.
Yeah.
But I think he and I would be good friends.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe we need to have him as a guest, you know?
It could be. He's got a lot of cool stories. A lot of really cool stories.
That would be fun. I think there's some validity to having some community theater folks here just to talk about if maybe you love doing this, but you don't want to go into it professionally.
For sure. For sure.
All right. Checklist.
So
all of Elizabeth's
world, yeah. That's the world that I sort of popped into, was the world of community theater. You know, I can remember being 4 and 5 years old, going to rehearsals with my father. Famously, he loves to tell the story of me going to a rehearsal that he was directing a production of The Wizard of Oz at the Fox Theater in Denver, Colorado. That's where we were stationed at the time. And my dad was trying to get the actors to say winged monkeys. And they would just say winged monkeys. And I would say winged every time that I would correct them and yell from the front seat, winged. And my 5-year-old can say it. Why can't you say it? So I definitely got the theater bug pretty early in that way. As I got older and older, I would still help with my dad at the theater. I would go to the theater with him and help build scenery, help hang lights, things like that. I was in a couple of productions as an actor. That was fun for me. However, I have zero formal training as far as acting is concerned. And as I got into middle school, well, sort of before that, elementary age, I started getting very interested in music. I got a piano when I was about 7 years old. That's what I wanted for my birthday. My dad took me to the mall for what seemed like hundreds of hours in the late 80s, early 90s, while a piano was being delivered to my house. We finally got to go home. I got to see it. I fell immediately in love with it. I started taking piano lessons right away. And I took piano lessons all the way through college from that point.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So I sort of veered away from theater at that point, more into the music basket, which ultimately I think is what drove me to sort of the sound area that I'm involved in now. Because as I got older, I just started picking up more instruments. When I still lived in Colorado as, you know, a second, third, and fourth grader, I was able to join the school orchestra. I picked up the viola. I played viola for about 7 years. I quit playing the viola when it got sort of too hard for me to fake, because the viola is in alto clef, the piano is in treble and bass clef. I'm the first to admit that I kind of just sort of shined it on for a long time because my best friend was sitting next to me in my orchestra class, and I was more interested in talking to her than learning the viola. And so I really never learned as a kid how to effectively read alto clef. And when it got too hard, I had to stop.
So are you one of those people that can play pretty much by ear? You know, most instruments kind of pick it up and start playing it. You have that gift?
I would say that I'm gifted in learning a new instrument, but I am not good at things like improvisation, and I'm not a great like jazz player. I can read a chart, but I can't make up a lot of stuff on my own on the fly. I'm just too classically trained, I guess. I really rely on sheet music a lot. So that is something I wish I had a little more of, definitely in my back pocket, but it's just not a part of my sort of music makeup, and that's okay.
No, yeah, but still the ability to pick up, just pick up the viola and learn it very quickly. And yeah, that's amazing. You definitely have an incredible aptitude for instruments. That's a great thing for sure.
I love it. I really do. The viola didn't work out so great for me, although I still have it. So I do intend on getting better at it at some point. But in middle school, as soon as I was allowed to, I joined band. We started in 6th grade. By this time, my family had moved to Florida. And so I played flute and piccolo in band. In the 8th grade, I was drum major. So, I would lead the band in parades and football games, oftentimes just sort of band class also. And I sort of just continued on that path. I was usually first chair or section leader. I liked to be, have some responsibility and sort of, teach the others that weren't learning as fast as I was. Sort of mentor, I guess, in a peer mentorship kind of way, starting as soon as middle school. When I went to high school, I kept being in band the whole time. If an instrument needed to be picked up here or there, for a time I was in jazz band. There was no tenor sax player, and so I was asked to learn how to play tenor sax, and I did. And I played jazz. I played tenor sax in jazz band for 1 year. I did a lot of competitions. I did a lot of, solo and ensemble, all county band, things like that. I was section leader my senior year of high school. And I just, dove headfirst into music. I sort of had started myself a little side business in late middle school and early high school of being an accompanist on the piano.
Oh, nice.
All of my friends during their solo and ensemble competitions, you normally have a piano playing with you when you're playing your solos. And so, I would, during solo and ensemble season, I would make, $1,000 or $1,500 just accompanying people on the piano.
That's awesome.
I thought, okay, great. I'm starting to be able to make this work for me a little bit.
Yeah. So you must have been your band director's best friend. Just meaning that they must have loved having you. Like, oh no, call Elizabeth.
I think that I like
sax player.
I think my middle school band director really appreciated my eagerness and all of that a lot. And my middle school band director actually went to college with both my parents, and in a tiny, tiny little town, Montevallo, Alabama. They all went to Montevallo University. But I think maybe I was a little too pushy for my high school band director. I have to admit it. But I went to college. When I went to college at Florida State, I had been able to graduate high school a semester early because we were on a block schedule. So the only elective that I cared about was band. So my other elective spots, I would fill up with academic classes just so I could get out of high school. And I worked for that semester that I would have been in school. And as soon as I graduated, officially, when my whole class graduated in 2000, I that summer started college at Florida State University.
Wow. So you, it sounds like every aspect of high school that you were involved in, you kind of rose to the top as a leader. Was that something you think your parents felt you were encouraged to do? Was that kind of a natural inclination that you had that they supported, or what do you think that was caused by?
I mean, I definitely think that it is a natural inclination from myself, but also definitely encouraged, from my parents. My parents are both really ambitious people. They've done a lot of things with their lives and their careers. They have multiple college, different levels of college degrees. And they're just kind of leader people themselves. And so I guess I think they would have been happy with whatever choice that I made. But I think that my leadership quality was definitely nurtured by them a lot.
Very nice. They sound awesome. They sound very supportive of the arts,
Yeah.
which of course we love and are thankful that they raised you to be a star, which is really cool. So one other question, just out of curiosity, because I know your story. I know it's kind of loop back around to this much later. In high school, did you just continue to do community theater at all, or was it pretty much just the earlier part of life that you were involved?
So when I started band in middle school and the beginning of high school, trying to get my place in the very big band program that existed at my high school, I kind of dropped away from theater completely.
Okay.
My high school didn't really have much of a theater program to speak of. We didn't have an auditorium. We didn't even have a gymnasium, cafetorium, mashed up thing like a lot of schools have. No stage to speak of anywhere, nothing. And so when the theater class would put on productions, they would have to rent out a facility somewhere and put on a production there. As far as I know, there was not much of a tech program involved, and so it wasn't very appealing to me. Towards the end of high school and during that time that I had graduated high school, but I was still around and working, I did get a lot more interested again in community theater and would do some shows with my dad.
Okay.
I even did a couple without him. So I would say towards the end of high school is when I sort of remembered that theater was still there.
Got you. Absolutely. And that's fair. I mean, all of us have gone through that transition time of finding our place, and that's good. And especially, going into sound, obviously having a good ear is a huge thing. And we've learned through other interviews just how important, if you have a musical background, that's a huge bonus to that, which is great. So you definitely built that background well. So good job. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So I distracted you. So we're now transitioning to college.
Yeah. So I went to school at Florida State. I was in the music school at Florida State, which is still a really, really great music school, especially for, a public university. There were people from all over the world that were at my school. My principal instruments were piano and flute. And so I would take lessons in each of those areas. I had to take one lesson a week for each instrument. The whole group was called a studio. So in the flute studio, there was maybe 50 people. In the piano studio, there was maybe 25 people, just in my particular studio with my teacher.
Right.
And I started learning that being on the performance track that I thought I was going to be on was absolutely terrifying. The other students, first of all, were so much better than me. I mean, some of these, kids that were Suzuki trained since they were a year old or 2 years old and could just play Tchaikovsky forward and backward with no music, and teeny tiny hands. And I was really amazed and shocked. I did not even, I guess, know that many people of my age existed in the world and had that much talent.
Right.
It was really intimidating. And some people in, just throughout my time sort of trying to continue that performance path, it did seem like a sort of cutthroat kind of place to be. I would get very nervous to play in front of them, which I had to do once a week. because sometimes, you know, like I would fail and then I could tell that they were happy that I was moving down a chair because that meant they would move up a chair. And it was just all too much. It was too much for me. It was too much pressure, too scary, too mean. And I didn't want to do that anymore.
Yeah, because you were pretty young, right? You graduated early, and didn't you tell me you were 17 when you went to college?
The summer that I started, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a lot of pressure on a young person for sure.
Yeah. So I found another program inside of the School of Music called commercial music, and it's not commercials as in, you know, like the Fruity Loops jingle.
Yeah,
it's commercial as in the music, the business of music.
Okay.
And so the commercial music program would teach things like the legal environment of business, how to make your music your business. You could take sort of a bunch of different tracks within this program. One could be artist representation. One could be, you know, performance. One could be studio. One could be live. You know, just there's a lot of little niches inside the commercial music industry. And I sort of immediately gravitated towards the studio aspect of it. And that's sort of where I discovered that I could learn sound. I mean, I had not been doing sound in theater before. I didn't do it in high school. It was in college, and in about my second year that I sort of discovered sound as something that could be my job in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's interesting. So absolutely no background in it, and because of, and it's interesting to me, the commercial music program was part of the music, although it does make sense because when you record and it's music. Yeah, but I'm interested to hear more about that. So do you think the aim of the program was to put out musicians who are prepared to go commercial, or was it more on the recording, or did you kind of have freedom to decide which aspect of that it was?
Well, it was inside of the music school, and so music sort of being the centric part of the degree program was very important to the success of, you know, its graduates, and very important to the professor who was the head of that program, who still is at Florida State, Brian Gaber. And I really owe a lot of what I know to him in particular. The program sort of shoot that I was in, the studio training, we would once a week, my directive was to write, perform, and produce one song once a week.
Wow.
We had a key card access to a studio. So I could be in there at any time for as long as I wanted. It's a pretty nice studio. And I had to write and play these songs myself. I could have other players on them, but I had to be one of the players. So that was a big part of sort of the music involvement right there. And it was something that, coming off of sort of this traumatic entry to the music school, kind of almost made me back out, because I didn't think I wanted to be a musician anymore. I didn't think that I wanted to play. I begged my professor to let me hire other students to play. And I said, you know, to make up for that, I could do 2 songs a week, or, you know, I can still write the songs, but maybe they could play them. And he said no. His phrase that he said to me, that I have repeated to, I don't even know, countless interns and students and mentees over the years, where the phrase was, I am not putting out button pushers. My sound engineers are musicians, not button pushers.
That's great.
And he, you know, he would talk all the time about being on tour with this jazz band or that jazz band in, you know, various countries, and over the past several decades, of when he could tell that a sound engineer was musically inclined or when they weren't. when they were invested in the performance or when they were just there literally pushing a button. And he said, I don't want my engineers to be button pushers. So that's why you're going to be a performer. The music and the sound go together. You need them both.
Yeah.
And I really, pushed hard against that, but thank him, silently every day to myself, because it really is what made me be in the position that I'm in now. I absolutely, sort of meld sound and music together. And without one or the other, I don't think I could be an effective sound designer for myself, the way my brain works, or composer. I know plenty of sound designers and sound engineers that are, brilliant at their jobs that aren't musical, and that's totally fine. I'm just saying that it's really done a lot for me. It's given me such a leg up, and it helps me understand the work on a totally different level. So I'm glad that I had them both.
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes total sense, because if you are manipulating sound, whether it's music or not, and especially if it involves instruments, knowing those instruments and how they work and the different tonalities you can get out of them, to me, it would just make your capabilities that much more than someone who didn't have those abilities, which is awesome.
Yeah, totally. And so I finally did. I would start, I said, okay, fine. I have to play the songs.
If you're going to make me, I'll do it.
Yeah. And that's what I started doing. And, sometimes it was really great, and sometimes it wasn't great. And sometimes I would stay up, really late hours every night for a whole week and be really proud of a song. And then I would show it to him. And famously, he would go into his office, grab his trumpet. He was a jazz trumpet player. And, sometimes he would just start playing, like one song in particular I had written. I was so proud of it. I thought it was really bluesy and moody and jazzy. I played it for him, and he went and got his trumpet and started playing along to it. Dun 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 dun. I was like, man. He would always point out when I was stealing somebody else's work, or, chord progression or something like that.
That's classic. That's great. And defeating at the same time.
Right, exactly. But, just everything that he taught me, I really tried to keep in my brain, and I still use all the time. When at the end of my college career, I had to give a recital as a senior graduating from the School of Music. And so my recital was of all of my original music that I had written in those lessons. And I hired a band, a 4-piece band to play with me. I played piano, I sang, I even had like some backup singers. And if you told me that that's what I was going to do my freshman year, I would have not believed you.
Yeah, but how much fun is that, though?
It was great. It was so amazing. So after that, I immediately, I graduated in August of 2004. And in December of 2004, my mom and I drove me from Florida to California. And I moved to California to try to get myself closer to the music. At that time, I thought that what I would do with my career was to start a brick and mortar studio. I wanted to have my own record label. I wanted to have a studio. But sort of halfway through my college career, it became apparent that people were learning this stuff on their own. Software was becoming cheaper. People were starting to develop the in-home studio and not going to brick and mortar studios as often. And so I thought, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it in this way. So I'm going to have to figure out something else.
Yeah, YouTube was becoming the new path to stardom at that time.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, it is. And, there's still a lot to be said for the physical studio that you can, pay money and go to. But just, Billie Eilish just won like 1,000 Grammys for something that she produced in her bedroom with her brother while they're both still teenagers,
Yeah. Yep. That's insane, but good on them, right? But still,
right.
yeah, it's not for everyone though. I mean, that's the important thing, that we'll still need those studios for sure.
Totally. So when I got to California, I was living with my college roommate who had moved out there about a year before I did. She was teaching band at a high school in Imperial, California, which is a very small desert town. And there was another very, very much smaller than Imperial even, desert town called Calipatria. They needed a band director, and she encouraged me to apply for that job and to interview for it. And I thought, I did not go to school for education. I've never taken a single, music education class. I don't have a teaching credential. I don't know if that's going to work. But I did. I applied for the job. I got an interview. And at the end of the interview, I was signing contracts to not only be the band director, but the district band and music director.
Wow.
So I taught band and music at the middle school, high school, and elementary school in that little city for 2 years. And
with no education other than, obviously you knew the instruments. You had plenty of band experience, so you're almost like an artist in residence kind of.
Right.
Yeah.
I think because it wasn't an academic class that I was teaching, the education department has the ability to say you're an expert in your field because of the degree that you hold.
Right.
You can teach this class. I took a test for an emergency teaching credential, and I got that. So then I was clear to teach. And I taught in that school or in those schools for 2 years. I built up the band program. When I got there, there was about 7 students. At the end of the first year, I think I had about doubled it. And then the end of my second year, I had maybe between 20 and 25 students.
Good job.
And it was a very small school. This town is literally a one, intersection, one stoplight town. It's very small. So yeah, I did feel a pretty big sense of accomplishment with that. And I also introduced another class there that I took in college called Modern Popular Music. And it just sort of, it taught the basics of music as we know it, popular music. So the kind of influence that the Beatles have on rock and roll and things like that. So we did have a lot of students at that school that were trying to get into band. They wanted to be in there with their friends, but they didn't have really any music training. So that's why I wanted to develop this other class for them to sort of get some kind of a music class in without any music background.
Yeah, that's great. I know, having grown up in a small town like that, I bet that class was incredibly popular just because it was something different, right? And current.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's great. That's good for them. I mean, they need those kinds of classes for arts education. So good job.
Thank you. But as fulfilling as all of that was, and I'm really happy that I went on that path, I didn't set out to be a teacher, and that's just not what I wanted to do 100%. So I moved to San Diego, and I applied for lots of jobs in San Diego. I applied for lots of teaching jobs, but then I also discovered that San Diego has a really huge theater scene.
Absolutely.
And I saw several theaters that were looking for a resident sound engineer, and one of them was the Star Theater in Oceanside, which is it's right near Camp Pendleton. It's the very northernmost city in San Diego.
Okay.
So I applied for that sound engineer position. I'd also applied for a teaching position at Guajome Park Academy in Vista, California, which is right next door to Oceanside. And I got both of those jobs. And I took both of those jobs.
Because you wanted no free time, right?
Right.
why have a life when I live in San Diego? There's nothing to do there.
There's nothing. So boring.
That's exciting. That's an exciting life, I'm sure. You, especially after living in Calipatria for a couple years, a little bit of a difference.
Totally. And to Calipatria's benefit, I have never lived in a small town like that ever in my life. And I've lived in a bunch of places with my dad, being in the Air Force. And I did really like that. I could see where people would love the growing up, in the same place forever, sort of small town vibes, just like walk to your neighbors and things like that. But just who I am is just sort of city and bigger, and I just couldn't do that forever.
Absolutely understand that. Absolutely. Very good. So of those two jobs you took, what ended up winning out?
So the teaching job was part-time, which is why I felt pretty safe to take both of the jobs. I had not yet had a lot of mix experience, mixing theater. Well, really none, to be honest. The mixing experience that I had was of bands and concerts that I had been a part of when I worked in the recital halls when I was in college. I think I forgot to touch on that, but that was a big part of also of sort of me coming into the sound world was when I was in college. I worked in the recital halls and would facilitate, the recording of the recitals, setting them up. If it was a bigger something more like a jazz combo or things that needed live sound reinforcement, I started learning how to mix those things. And that was basically the extent of mixing live experience that I had. But I still got this job at the Star Theater. At the high school, I was teaching, and actually it was like a 6th grade through 12th grade school. It was a charter school. Yeah. There I taught musical theater, and I taught band and choir. So I only had really 2 classes during the day and 1 after school, like once a week. And I had plenty of time to sort of hone my my mixing skills at the theater. After 1 year of working both of those jobs, I realized I would be able to put all of my energy into the theater job, and I didn't need both of them anymore. So I did not renew my contract the 2nd year at the school, and I just went full force at the theater. And about that 2nd year, the artistic director of the company asked me if I were to step into the technical director position, would I be able to handle that? Our technical director at the time was, and the theater had a very small resident staff, maybe 5 people. The technical director lived about 40 minutes away from the theater, as opposed to my next doorness. And he was great. I learned so much from him about building scenery, about painting. I design things that you can't see for a reason. And sort of visual artistry is not my forte.
That's awesome.
But being a part of a small staff, we were sort of an all hands on deck, and I had to learn that stuff. And I learned a lot of that from him.
So you had to become your dad.
Yeah, I had to become my dad.
I bet he's proud. That's awesome.
Yeah. But the technical director was starting a family. He lived pretty far away. More often than not, when something would happen at the theater, he would just call me and ask me if I could go handle whatever the thing was. And of course I would. And I think that the artistic director just started to see, while she loved us both, she didn't think that both of us could be doing basically the same job.
Right.
And so she asked if I stepped into the technical director position, could I handle it? And I said, yes. And the next day she said, you're the technical director now. And I said, okay, great.
So I'm seeing a pattern here, Elizabeth. So Elizabeth moves to California. She didn't go to college to be a band director, but she says, okay, I can do that job. no experience, jumps in, takes it over, kills it, just does a great job. 2 years, then moves to San Diego, realizes, oh, there's sound positions in theater, gets a job, kills it, then is asked, could you be a technical director? Oh, by the way, you've never been trained in that, and I bet you kill it. That's my prediction. You're going to kill it, right?
I feel like I killed it to the best of my ability, and I think that everyone at the theater was happy with what I could do there.
There you go. That's awesome.
I would never stand up next to any professional technical director now and say, you and me are the same.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. But I love this attitude of yeah, I can do that. Okay, let's do it. That's great.
I wanted to do it, and I wanted to have the responsibility. I knew that I would learn more. I have always been a trial by fire learner.
Yeah.
Throw me in the hottest part, and I just, if my life depends on it, then I will learn it. You know.
That's good.
And I was there for 4 years like that. So I guess, you know, I kept things going pretty well. And the technical director at this theater was not the sort of typical technical director that you think of. It was more the director of all things technical. So I would facilitate lighting design, lighting hangs, you know, scenic design, scenic builds, painting, sound engineering, sound design, costuming, prop pulls, prop builds. And I would sort of say, like, okay, I can do these things, but I'm going to need these many people to help me with it. So, you know, I would find high school students to help me, or I'd be able to hire some other people for a while, a year or a couple of months or something like that. And so, you know, we sort of kept the machine moving in that way. And I ended up dating an actor who had applied to go to the acting conservatory at Pacific Conservatory Theater, PCPA for short. I realize those two things don't line up. It used to be called the Pacific Conservatory of the Performing Arts.
Okay.
And they've just rebranded a couple of years ago. So gotcha. PCPA stands because it's, you know, an over 50-year company that people know by that name, but the long title of it is Pacific Conservatory Theater now.
Absolutely.
Anyways, this guy had applied to be in the acting program there. They have a 2-year conservatory for acting and technical theater.
Cool.
And I thought, well, we'll just move there together in Santa Maria. It's about 5 hours north of San Diego, and I'll figure out something I can do.
Yeah.
When we were in Santa Maria for his callback, I found that PCPA was now looking for a resident sound engineer. And so I applied for that job and actually did not get it at first. I believe the job was offered to a young woman who had previously been a part of the company and was maybe thinking about coming back. But I think that she accepted the job, but then found another job that was going to take her out of the country, which was a new sort of exciting adventure that she wanted. So she then declined the job, and then I got a call from PCPA.
Awesome.
So I accepted that job, started work. I was the resident sound engineer. Immediately, I was mixing big musicals at a professional regional theater. It was pretty scary, to be honest, because, you know, a lot of my, I feel that I had really honed my skills at the Star Theater. And I worked at a couple of other little places here and there. But I had not done anything of this level yet. Right. But I think that I worked hard and did a pretty good job. And about a year and a half later, so that was in 2009 that I started working at PCPA. About a year and a half later, the sound director was also starting a family. And so he and his family moved back east where they're from. And I applied for his job. and got it. Actually, when he was about to leave, he told me first, I'm going to be putting in my notice soon. You should apply for my job. And I was like, well,
That's very encouraging. Yeah.
I don't think that I'm ready for that. I've never been the sound director anywhere before. You know, I'm 27 or 28 or something at that time.
Wow. You'd already accomplished all of that and you were only 27, 28. That's yeah. Kudos to you. That's crazy.
Thank you. Yeah. But he said, I think you should, you know, just apply. And then if not, then you'll just still be the sound engineer. Like you literally have nothing to lose. And so I did apply and I got the job. And so from 2011 until 2019, July 2019, I was the sound director, resident sound designer, resident sound designer, composer at PCPA. And that's where I sort of started doing a lot more design work. At first, before I moved to Santa Maria, I would design a little thing here, you know, a year later, a little thing there. I just wasn't doing too much design work. When I became the sound engineer at the Star Theater, I would design a lot more then. When I was a sound engineer starting out at PCPA, I would design 2 shows a season.
Okay.
And then after that, I designed, you know, 90% of the season, I would say.
Absolutely. And I'm going to ask you to kind of pause here in the story just for an educational moment. If you can kind of school us in what exactly is a sound designer? What are the, you know, possibilities there for students kind of, if a student was thinking maybe a sound designer was something I wanted to be, what are some attributes that it's good to have? And yeah, just kind of what's their role in the whole thing?
Yeah. So when you go to see a play or a musical, everything that you hear has to be thought of by some person. Everything coming out of a speaker, a microphone, has to be designed in some way, and that's what the sound designer does. So in the case of a musical, I'm the person that is choosing every microphone that every actor is going to use. You know, I'm going to think about if this is a small child and they don't have maybe a lot of power behind their voice yet, I have to choose this kind of microphone. If this is a really seasoned actor who is, you know, has a huge voice and is a, you know, 300-pound man that's 7 feet tall, you know, wow. I'm going to use this kind of microphone, and so on and so forth. I choose all the speakers that are going to be used. I have to sort of get really sciencey and mathy about how the speakers are going to hit the audience and at which time. So we have to be really careful about having even coverage of sound across, you know, the entire house. We don't want to like kill the first 2 rows blasting music that we can barely hear in the back row. So that's all part of the sound designer world. And then the really fun part, writing sound effects, recording any music that needs to be recorded. Lots of sound designers are also composers, and I am as well. So writing music for shows, going to rehearsals and deciding what things need to go where or what kind of sound I can implement to sort of facilitate the storytelling in the best way. All of those things are under the sound designer purview, and then sort of programming it and putting it all together. You know, a lot of sound designers use QLab as a playback software. Right. It's my favorite for sure. I even have a picture on the QLab website because I love them so much, and I've provided them with a testimonial of how great they are, and there's my testimonial and my picture on the website.
Cool.
So the one that is deciding when and how that music and sound will come out to the audience all comes from the sound designer.
Very good. And so you have to keep current with technology and different types of microphones and sound systems and all of that. So yeah, so a sound designer is someone who definitely needs to like staying on top of current technology and things. Is that?
Yeah, there's like a pretty high level of nerdery that goes along with
That's great.
being in the sound industry. I thought it was really funny. The first, I'm a part of the Sound Commission for USITT, and the first USITT Sound Commission meeting that I went to, I looked around and everyone there kind of looked like me. They all had these, black frame glasses on and like Apple devices everywhere. And
It's
just
my tribe. I found my people.
exactly.
That's awesome. Very good. So tell us again, you're part of what committee? Tell me a little bit about
so a couple of sort of auxiliary things that I'm a part of are the USITT Sound Commission. And USITT is the United States Institute of Technical Theater. They do a huge annual conference in a different city and state every year. It is I recommend every single high school and college student attend, as many years as they can. It is such an incredible mentoring opportunity, learning opportunity, networking opportunity, swag opportunity.
Gotta love the swag in the vendor area.
That's right. And so, and each sort of discipline has their own commission, and I'm a part of the Sound Commission. And for the Sound Commission, the past 3 years, I've been sitting on the jury for new research and current practices in sound. Okay. We do a call for papers every year. We sort of go through them, decide on a couple to publish, and USITT will have these people, the writers of the papers, come out and present their papers, and the USITT Sound Commission will publish them. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's that's what I do for as far as USITT goes. I'm also involved in a couple of extra little outside things too. I'm involved in Sound Girls, which I know you've talked to a couple of Sound Girls already.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great.
And Sound Girls is awesome. It's just an online presence. It is, again, just a great place for inclusivity and sort of growing and nurturing. There are constantly all kinds of things being offered on the Sound Girls Facebook pages or their website, like online classes or scholarship to attend this class in person. Or there's like a lending library, and you can have books sent to you. There's just right now during everything that's going on as far as, the marches and the protests and everything, Sound Girls has is starting up a big resource for sound equipment to, for people to use. And Sound Girls is a worldwide presence. There's, Sound Girls in France and Ireland and Australia and Canada and Mexico and everywhere. And so they're sort of right now developing this database of, if you need some sound equipment for, Black Lives Matter or to attend a protest, here are the vendors in your area that have agreed to rent them out or, loan them out. Yeah. So just stuff like that is just really inspiring to be a part of.
Yeah, and I know that that's an important thing to you as a female in the sound industry, and I know when we talked before, because it's something that you're pretty passionate about because there needs to be more of, right? And that's kind of been your experience, and I know you want to talk about that a little bit, just
Sure.
What your thoughts there?
And it is still such a huge struggle. I didn't really even know that when I started out. When I first started, that commercial music program in college and working in the recital halls, one of my very first jobs was working at, I was working a recital for, I think I'll not name the name, but a pretty high profile artist, musician that came in to give a performance at Florida State. As the lead technician on this show, it was my job to sort of talk through just like what's going to happen, expectations, and things like that with the artist pre-show. I think I was 19 years old, maybe, but I was the lead technician on this show. I went to approach the artist. I was quickly cut off by the artist's manager, who had not been anywhere near the artist at all.
He was working.
Saw me approaching from afar and thought that he needed to intervene. He said, "Hi, what can I help you with?" And I had already been talking to the artist, so I just sort of started over my spiel. Well, I just wanted to introduce myself, and here's what we're going to be doing for you today, and here's the expectations, and so on and so forth. And he just started laughing, and he looked at me and he said, "Sweetheart, I'll be happy to go over whatever needs that you have with your boss, if you can just get him."
Ouch. Yeah.
And I just thought, I didn't even know what that was about. I thought, is he saying that because I'm so young? But I said, well, I'm the boss. There's nobody else here. I'm in charge of this show. So once again, here's what's going to go down. And he was just not at all open or receptive to speaking to me, I guess because I was young, and I guess because I was a woman.
Wow. That's unfortunate, and his loss for sure. Yeah.
So I mean, and even now, it's just, we make up such a small portion of a growing but slowly growing, population of the sound community. The sound design Tony, for example, has only been in existence since 2007, which is another just really weird thing. Why have the Tony Awards been around for so long, but the Sound Tony only popped up in 2007? But there have only been 2 women nominated for them. The first was Cricket Myers, nominated for the sound design of a play in 2011. The second was Jessica Paz, who was nominated for the sound design of a musical, which was Hadestown, in 2019, and she won. And she became the first woman to ever win a sound design Tony in 2019.
Isn't that crazy?
It's insane. And it is not for lack of valuable, talented women or women identifying designers. It's just for lack of producers hiring them. Yeah. Even right now, I think, and I'm not, don't quote me on this, but the 2020-2021 Broadway season that was slated before the pandemic went down was still over 60%, going to be designed and staffed by just basically old white guys.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest.
Yeah. So do you have aspirations towards Broadway, if that was an opportunity for you? In other words, when are you going to win your Tony?
Yeah, when am I going to win my Tony? I have gone full freelance now, so I'm not in residence at PCPA anymore. I freelance sound design. I'm trying to get more all over the place. I just got sort of my furthest east a couple of months ago. I designed a production of The Legend of Rock, Paper, Scissors at First Stage in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Nice. It was very cute. That's a children's theater. It's a regional children's theater, and they're very professional and very adorable, but also just like tiny little professional actors. That's awesome. So I got to sort of work my way more east, and I just, I don't know. I'm not a Broadway designer, so maybe I'm not speaking correctly, but I think that it sort of is the little core of people that are plucked out of, and I need to get my name and face in that side of the region in order to even be considered.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and I can attest to just what other people have told me who are working Broadway in different areas. It really is about who you know and networking and being connected to the right people for sure. Well, maybe we can help with that. Well, I'll talk to my people, and
Okay,
and any producers are listening, Elizabeth, she's the real deal.
yeah.
So you won't regret it.
Yeah,
Let's
for
get her
sure.
out there. Let's get her out there for
Um,
sure. So
and so, additionally, I just started teaching 2 quarters ago at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo. They actually had no sound program in their theater BA, and so no sound classes or anything. So I was asked to help develop and then teach a sound program there. So I've just come off my second quarter teaching there. I also wanted to talk about, I'm pretty heavily involved for the second year now in another organization called the TSDCA, which stands for the Theatrical Sound Designers and Composers Association.
okay.
Again, just another organization that it's just sort of a, internet-based presence. I love the TSDCA.
Yeah.
I have never, it's the resource I never knew I needed, and I've only had it for 2 years. It's so cool. I super encourage young designers to go to the tsdca.org and check out all the different ways you can be a part of it. It's a tiered membership level. So where I'm in the professional designers tier, there's a tier of retired designers, that just don't work that much anymore, but are still very connected to the community, want to be involved in discussions. There's a tier of sort of para designers. So people that work alongside designers like sound engineers, A2s, A3s, can be involved in the organization in that way. There's a young designers membership tier. And there's just, again, like Sound Girls, mentoring and classes and scholarships.
Yeah.
And right now, we're about to have our annual meetup,
Okay.
which normally happens in a physical place. So last year it was in Chicago. Oftentimes it's in New York City. This year it's online.
Of course, absolutely.
But, and this is the 5th annual meeting, and it's open. A lot of the seminars and classes that are involved in this festival are open to the public.
Oh,
so
wow.
This is
Great.
a really great time. It's going to be June 22nd through the 27th. And this would be a really great time for people to just, to come see what it's about.
Jump online and check it out. And what a great resource.
Yeah, I love it. Love it so much.
Cool. And I'll put a link to that. You'll find links to a lot of the things we've talked about in the description below. So if you're listening, I'll have a link down there to take you to that website if you want to go check it out.
Perfect.
Very good. Well, and there was one other thing, and it's crazy, Elizabeth. I don't know what it is. You just seem to not like having free time. How many things in the because you got a family now and kids and man, lots of energy, right? And one of the recurring things amongst our guests, I think, a lot of coffee consumption, perhaps something to keep it going.
Definitely a lot of coffee consumption, and I'm a Gemini, and I'm just I just start one thing after before I finish another, and I think that really a lot of it has to do with the fact that I moved around quite a bit when I was younger. I just, I've never been anywhere my whole life.
Yeah.
A lot of people say they've never, flown on an airplane, when they're adults. I've never had a best friend that I've had since kindergarten or something like that, So just keeping it fresh and new is something that I've just always been into. And when I find that what I'm doing is also helping other people, it just, I said at the beginning of this, I never wanted to be a teacher. And it's true. I never wanted to stand in a classroom and, lecture all day long. But I still have former students and interns that will call or text me and say, hey, I'm applying for this job. Can you write me a letter? Or what do you think about this? Do you think I'm ready for this? Or do you think I should do this? And, you know, or just tell me like, look how awesome I am. I have a former intern that is a sound engineer at Yale Repertory Theater.
Wow. That's awesome.
I have former interns that, you know, have toured with the Blue Man Group or Rock of Ages. I mean, just a lot of past success stories. And I just really love that. You know, this just kind of gives you a warm, bubbly feeling inside to know that you helped to be a part of that in some way.
Well, that's part of what makes you a star right there. Is that you love to not keep, you know, I think it's one of the Tim Schmidt, who is an A1, an audio engineer, who said there are no secrets. And you're very much like Tim. You know, why keep it to yourself?
Yeah.
Let's get people involved. Let's get people excited and doing this. And if they're going to do it, let's have them do it well. So let's share that experience. So congratulations on all of that success, because you definitely, I mean, you're still young. You're still got all of this time ahead of you to go win that Tony.
Thank you.
You know, if you want to mention the hidden stars of theater in your Tony speech, we wouldn't say no.
Okay, I will keep that in mind.
You know, I'm just throwing that out there. So,
right.
Because I'm sure that you've just because you've never won one before, you're destined to, because that's what you do.
Thank you. I
We're
appreciate
excited
that.
about that. Well, we're getting low on time here. I do want to, of course, there's a couple other questions that we always end with, and one of those is, you obviously are a very passionate person about all things that you're involved with, but you know, it's interesting because you didn't start on a trajectory, at least you didn't know you did, to be a sound designer in the world of musical theater and in theater in large. But that's where you, at one point, it clicked and you discovered, hey, this is a thing and I love it and I want to do this. What is it about that really made that switch click and that filled you with passion to pursue it so wholeheartedly?
You know, it's just being a designer or being a part of the creative team on a show, on a piece of theater, it's such a thrilling, you know, ride. I mean, I would be lying if I said, oh, I just do it all for the kids or for the, you know, people, or I do a lot of it for myself, because it really is, you know, it makes me feel good. It's fun. Yeah. It's scary. You know, when you go into that first concept meeting of, here's the show we're doing, here's how much money you have, here's when you need to have it finished, and it must be brilliant because, you know, we have a reputation to uphold. You have to work together with the other departments. You know, no human is an island in this situation. And if your speakers aren't going to work with the scenic design, or, you know, that microphone can't be worn in that place because of the costume, you have to make decisions and troubleshoot and trial and error. And it's kind of just like all of these floating nebulous pieces of a puzzle that magically come together. I think in every tech, there is some point where I just have my head buried in my hands and I think like, I thought too big. There's too much. I'm not going to get to the end. Like, what have I done? And then, you know, the magic of theater steps in, and it always happens. And then that opening night, you're just like, wow, we did this, fam. We all did this together.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So the creative aspect and the problem solving and all of those things. So
yeah,
kudos to you, because those are the things that make you a star, and you truly are. You truly are. Well, we're down to it. You've seen enough episodes. I know you knew it was coming. The very last thing we get to do is the wall of wisdom, which is filling up. But there's room for you, for sure, Elizabeth. So, as you know, I have my gaff tape. I have my paint pen. Your job is to wed these two together and give me something that I can write on a piece of gaff tape that's going to go on the wall of wisdom for our students as we collect this wonderful just nuggets of truth for each of them. Okay. So what is it going to be, ma'am?
If I had to leave one nugget of truth, I would say, if you want it, just say yes.
If you want it, just say yes. That's good. So expound on that and how that's helped you get where you are.
I think a lot of the things that decisions that I had to make where I did say yes could have put me in a totally different place right now had I said no. You know, when I was asked if I wanted to be the technical director of that theater, my brain knew that I wasn't qualified, but my heart knew that I wanted it, and I would just make sure that I educated myself to be the best that I could be. So I just said yes. I just, same with that sound director position at PCPA. I thought maybe I was too young. I thought maybe I didn't have enough experience. But I just said yes. And I just made sure that I kept learning and kept growing. And that was the right choice. If you want it, just say yes. The rest will fall into place later.
Yeah, that's awesome. And students, man, I can't agree with that enough and echo that. If you're out there and you're thinking, you may be sitting like Elizabeth was back in school and just not sure what the future is going to be. But you're thinking, oh, I love this thing or that aspect of theater. It may be performing, it may be a sound and design or whatever it is. Just do it. Yeah. I mean, if you love it, then pursue it and pursue it wholeheartedly and give it a shot. Right. Because you can do it. You can do it.
Totally.
Absolutely can. So, well, there is one other thing. I said that the wall of wisdom was the last thing, but first of all, I got to put this up here. I got it written. Hopefully it's dried here enough. So I was shaking a little bit and let it dry, but there you go. See, you want it, just say yes.
Yes.
Huh? All right, now, this is the hardest thing I've got to do all day is find a spot to put it, but I think we can fit you right in here above Alex Groveman. Oh,
nice.
Cut off, and there we go, right under Jerry J. Cranford. So there we go. Yay! And it fits. See?
Yay.
We have room for all the wisdom on the wall, which is great. But now it is down to it. It's time for our curtain call, and you never get to take a curtain call, Elizabeth, which is a travesty because you are truly a star. So what we ask is that you are willing to take the suspension of disbelief and imagine that I am a million audience members sitting out here, and it is your curtain call. And so this is for you, ma'am. And I would stand up if I had room in the trailer, but I don't. So you deserve every curtain call that you can take. So thank you. Thank you. Absolutely. And that will be echoed by everyone that watches this. And you are very, very deserving of that. So thank you for taking the time to be our star today, because you truly are a star. And thank you for all that you do to make the magic and this thing that's called theater that we love happen. So thank you for that.
Thank you for having me. It was great.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was great to have you. And so, as always, of course, it's great to have everybody with us today that joined us here for this. And so thank you, guys. Thank you for watching. Please, as always, subscribe if you haven't done that. I'm going to keep saying it until you've all subscribed. And there's a lot of you, so I'm going to keep saying it for a while. Like, comment, share this with your friends. If there's people out there that that love theater and they're not watching our program, why not? They should be. So you know what? Go to them and do them a favor and share it. They'll thank you for it, I promise. And so that's it, though. Everybody have a great week, and we'll see you next time right here on the Hidden Stars of Theater. Bye-bye.